Welcome to the Neurology Live Mind Moments podcast. Tune in to hear leaders in neurology sound off on topics that impact your clinical practice. I'm your host, Marco Meglio, editor with Neurology Live. In this episode, we sat down with Dr. Rajesh Pahwa, director of the Parkinson's Disease and Movement Disorder Center at the University of Kansas Medical Center, who discussed the ongoing Phase 3 Expedite 2 trial of Bemdaneprocel, an investigational cell therapy in development for Parkinson's disease. In the discussion, Pahwa laid out the rationale behind cell therapy for PD, the mechanism behind this new agent, and the details behind this large-scale registrational study. Furthermore, while he noted many questions remain, he spoke on the promise of this therapy as a next-generation option for patients living with Parkinson. Let's dive into it.
So one of the challenges with Parkinson's disease is there is a loss of dopaminergic neurons. So with advancing Parkinson's, there's less and less of the dopamine neurons, and we are providing more and more of dopamine by the way of levodopa. So one of the interests has been for a long time, what if we do cell replacement therapy? What if we put dopaminergic neurons in the brain? Can they survive and produce dopamine? So this has been going for quite a few years, and different forms of dopamine cells have been looked at, the most common being fetal cell tissue implants. And we saw with cell tissue implants of dopaminergic cells that the cells survived for, in some cases, even for 20 years, but the patients were having other issues, for example, the dyskinesias, because once they started producing dopamines, you could not regulate. And that's been one of the challenges that has been there. So when stem cells started becoming more important, one of the things was, can we use the stem cell to produce the specific dopaminergic neurons and replace that in the brain, which would produce the dopamine for the patient? So that's how the next, I would say, the level of dopaminergic cell therapy has begun, and that's where we are.
Well, it's very, very interesting to say the least, and obviously, kind of years of research to get to this point right now. So, let's talk a little bit about the trial itself. Before we go on the ins and outs of this trial, what are some of the considerations that were taken into factor when building a registrational phase 3 trial, testing a cell therapy in this patient population? Obviously, we really haven't had too many, or if not any trials, kind of focusing in at least to this level or as big as this one. So what considerations go into building a trial like this, testing a therapeutic like this?
So the thing is, when we talk about cell replacement therapy, the first issue comes down to is what patient population we need to look at. So the first thing is, of course, these patients need to have Parkinson's disease and not atypical Parkinson's. So that's the one place we need to begin off with is Parkinson's disease patients. The next thing is, because it is still investigational, we don't want to use this therapy uh, in uh, in patients with early disease or newly diagnosed, because first we need to look at the safety and the efficacy of this product. So when we look at it that way, what is one of our unmet needs we have with Parkinson's disease? And one of our unmet need continues to be patients who are on levodopa and still having off time. That in spite of medication that they're taking, they still have off time. And that's the patient population that is being looked at, is patients with Parkinson's disease who have off time. The other thing we also need to make sure is that we don't include patients who are very old, because we cell therapy is going to take a little longer than oral medications or even deep brain stimulation to provide the best efficacy, because it's going to be cell replacement that is occurring. So this study really takes patients who are between 45 and 75 years of age to be in the study. And the other thing is, these patients should still be improving with levodopa. So it should not be patients who are too advanced in the disease course that do not improve very well with levodopa. And that's the main focus of our patients. Of course, patients should not have significant dementia, because again, we do not want to take that very advanced patient when we are going into these procedures. To simplify, patients with Parkinson's disease age 40 to 75 on levodopa having off time in spite of oral medication.
So let's talk a little bit about the trial itself. Obviously, you kind of laid out just kind of some of the preliminary things about it, but talk a little bit more about how this trial is conducted. Give our clinical audience a little bit of insight on some of the ins and outs, some of the endpoints and things of that sorts, as well as, obviously you guys have already started to enroll patients. So any insights on what the patient demographics look like of this trial?
Right. So, as you know, this is the next phase, the large study that is being done. As you're aware, the early study that was done looked at a couple of different doses, but that study was mainly done for the safety part. And with the safety part, it was shown that the drug was safe. There was nothing major concern as far as going to the next phase is concerned. Of course, that study was not done to show efficacy, but at least in the high dose cohort, it did show some degree of efficacy, which is promising from that part. But right now, we are looking, at the next uh, phase to include a larger number of patients. So there are screeners available. So if anyone is potentially interested in, they can go on the website, and I'm sure I can put it on your chat, which you can put it on there, is expeditestudy.com. That is EXPDITE study.com. And they can fill a screener. They can see if they might be potential candidates for the study.
We're going to take a quick break from our conversation with Dr. Pahwa to keep you up to date on the latest developments in neurology. Welcome to the Neurology News Minute. Here's what you may have missed since our last episode. First, on May 31st, Phase 2 data from the FEN-OPTA study presented at the 2025 CMSC annual meeting showed that patients with relapsing multiple sclerosis on fenebrutinib had low relapse rates with no active brain lesions or disability progression after 2 years of treatment. Phase 2 studies assessing the BTK inhibitor in relapsing and progressive MS are expected to start reading out by the end of the year. Next, on May 5th, newly announced data from the Level 2 of the Phase 1/2 Affinity Duchenne trial showed that treatment with higher doses of RGX-202 and investigational gene therapy led to positive changes in disease trajectory and improvements in certain biomarkers among patients with Duchenne muscular dystrophy. Relative to natural history cohorts, those on the gene therapy showed improvements across a variety of scales, including NSAA and timed function tests. And lastly, on May 10th, positive top-line data from a pre-specified Alzheimer's disease biomarker analysis of the Phase 3 Broadway trial showed that treatment with obistrapib significantly reduced absolute changes in p-tau217, a notable Alzheimer's biomarker. Full data is expected to come later this year at the 2025 AAIC conference in Toronto. For more information about these stories, head to neurologylive.com, or you can check out the corresponding link in the show notes. And now, back to our conversation with Dr. Pahwa.
I'm also curious from your perspective, obviously as someone who's been in the field for, quite a long time right now, and you've seen, the advances of therapeutics, just talk a little bit about the significance and getting to this point about having a cell therapy in a registrational Phase 3 trial. Just talk a little bit about what that means and just from your perspective as someone who's seen a lot in the field over some time.
So, first of all, any therapy for a disorder that is progressive and can cause significant impairment, both physically and mentally, is a great potential that we have. We still have long ways to go as far as trying to slow the disease is concerned. If implanting cells in the brain can produce the dopamine, it may give us an option to better regulate the amount of dopamine that's in the patient's brain cells and hopefully not cause off time or dyskinesias in them and keep them stable longer and hence improve their quality of life. That's the hope in this study that we are doing. Of course, until the trial is done, we cannot say for sure how this is going to end up. But the other thing, like I said, is we have been interested in cell therapy for at least 3 or 4 decades now. And this is the first time we are again back into a really well-controlled study to see how well this would work. So I'm very excited about this. And I hope that we do have positive results from it.
And we're hopeful as well. Obviously, that would be awesome to see if we do get some positive data. This may be a little bit too forward-thinking question, but let's say the study is successful, right? And this drug does, get submitted for an application to the FDA and things of that sorts. And you touched upon it a little bit there in your last answer, but what would a cell therapy kind of bring to the treatment landscape for Parkinson's patients? And how would we be able to use a cell therapy in conjunction, not maybe in conjunction, but alongside some of the other therapeutics that we currently have right now?
So first of all, at this stage, we do not know if it would replace some of the current therapies or it would be in addition to the current therapies, whether it's subcutaneous infusions or even deep brain stimulation for that part. So we do not know that. Maybe it might be something as an option in patients who are going for deep brain stimulation that they may be also offered cell therapy. Of course, there are advantages and disadvantages about it. Cell therapy is going to be a one surgery, one part thing that you are not going to require any hardware in the body like with deep brain stimulation. You're not going to require programming. You wouldn't have to worry about changing the IPG or the batteries for those patients. But we still have to see, is the efficacy similar or better or worse? I mean, those are questions we don't have answers for, and that's why these studies are being done. The other thing is, does using cell therapy change the course of the disease? And that's another important question we have no idea about. So again, I'm talking about a lot of unknowns, but at the same time, exciting. There is this finally cell therapy which we can offer our patients, at least as part of a clinical trial. So hopefully in the next few years, we'll be able to discuss some of these results.
Yeah, I remember when I was talking with Dr. Racket last year at MDS, he had, expressed how many people were so enthusiastic to join the study and get into the study and things of that sort. So we're very, very much excited to see what the results show over the next couple of months. Dr. Pahwa, I appreciate you taking some time out of your day. Last question for you. Is there anything unique or innovative about this study that you'd like to call out that maybe we didn't touch upon before that's just a little bit different about the Expedite 2 trial?
So first of all, it's not a couple of months. I would say more than a couple of years or longer before we have these results. So we are just starting it off. And the primary endpoint would be at 18 months. So when you're looking at 18 months, the last patient coming in is going to be 18 months later. And then we have to look at the results and all that. So it would be much longer than, definitely not in a couple of months from that part. But again, like I said, the uniqueness is one, people have been wanting stem cell. Of course, we cannot implant stem cells in the brain. They have to be cleaned and processed and given the kind of cell that is needed. So I think that's where people need to realize what they have been waiting for. We are finally there to show these things efficacious and safe.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Neurology Live Mind Moments podcast. To support the show, be sure to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And as always, for more neurology news and expert-driven content, visit neurologylive.com.